All right, guys. Well, here we are, the last lecture of the year. Thank you guys all so much for staying with me the entire semester. I appreciate it. I want to go over a few things real quickly here before we get into the last two chapters, chapter 17, 18. First off, outstanding job on the last three, four assignments or so, especially your guys' site tours. Your guys' analysis of the hotels you went to, I thought were dead on. Your assessments were wonderful. You guys really did a nice job of digging deep, giving me some great feedback on why you liked it, why you didn't like it, what were the strengths, the weaknesses. Again, fantastic job, you guys. My apologies for the glitch in the second case study. It got pointed out to me, I think it was late on Sunday or late on Sunday, that I set it for 11 a.m. so 11 p.m. Hopefully, most of you noticed I kicked it back till actually Monday night at 11 p.m. Some of you went ahead and sent it to me, not a problem. I copied and pasted it in, so you guys are going to get full credit for that. And again, my apologies. Last exam is this Thursday, so quiz 3, as it's been labeled in there, will be all set to go. Be live on Thursday. Again, so far, guys, you're doing a fantastic job. I love what I'm seeing from everybody. Test scores have steadily increased, which I love to see as well. So hopefully, this last one, you guys will just absolutely knock it out of the ballpark. Lastly, before we get to the end of the chapter 17, I just want to tell you guys how much I've thoroughly enjoyed this class. I've got to meet a number of you guys through site tours, through text, through telephone calls. I love the kind of stuff you guys are writing. Again, this is probably one of the most enjoyable. I taught this class somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 7 times, I think. This is without a doubt one of the best classes I've had. So thank you guys for everything you've given to the class. Obviously, it keeps me going, keeps me rejuvenated, if you will. Hopefully, you've gotten something out of it, and you're going to be stronger when you go into the hospitality world. So here we go, chapter 17. So we're talking a little bit more about exhibit shows, the floor of the exhibits, and who can host these and how they host them. So one thing to know is exhibit shows can be hosted really by anybody. Convention centers are probably your main staple, but there are enough large hotels. And when we look at Indianapolis, the JW obviously is one that does a lot of these. The Marriott East does a fair number of trade shows. The Crown that I work at does a fair number of them. The Downtown Marriott. And obviously, as you go nationwide, think of those big cities, convention city, I say tier one convention cities, your Chicago's, your New York's, your LA's, Vegas. You know, the hotels in Vegas are monsters. You look at someplace like Mandalay Bay that has 1 million square feet by itself, that one hotel, 1 million square feet of meeting space. That's more than the Indianapolis Convention or the Indiana Convention Center. So again, these exhibit shows can range from, 5,000 tabletops to 50 tabletops. It just depends. Typically, these are associated with associations. Sorry for the redundancy there. So, and what you're going to see at a trade show, probably one of three different types. Tabletops, just a 6 foot table with a skirting on it, two chairs behind it. You guys have seen it before. You'll see those on campus a lot when you guys are doing job fairs and those kind of things. You'll have what we call booths, obviously 8x10, 10x10 booths, a little more elaborate. Have a square footage area, if you will, that you can bring in clients and kind of talk to them. I would say a little more intimate, if you will, that you're not. The booth invites them in as opposed to a table which keeps you at a distance. Then the last thing is going to be area exhibits, and these are your really huge trade shows. And if you ever get a chance, one of the great ones to see in Indianapolis is when the firefighters come in, the FDIC trade show. They're using all of the Indiana Convention Center, all of Lucas Oil Stadium, and those kind of exhibits could include trucks, could include equipment, MPI, Meeting Professionals International, when they do theirs. It is without a doubt unbelievable. I know we talked about this in past lectures, but the one I went to that was actually in Las Vegas, one of the airlines had brought in the fuselage of an airplane that they had cut in half, and it was basically an exhibit. You could see what the plane was like that you were going to travel on, and they moved this thing all over the country. So again, it's absolutely phenomenal what some of these trade shows can pull off. And again, if you ever get a chance to go to some of these bigger trade shows, I highly recommend taking the opportunity just to see it from an industry standpoint and how things work, how they're loaded in, what all entails to get this stuff from one spot to the next. So when we look at the exhibit area, typically you're going to have four different types of area within a trade show. So your standard, which means you're just going in lines and you have a standard booth spot. You could have a peninsula. Obviously, you're kind of like jutted out, if you will, and these will vary by cost. A peninsula usually is a little more expensive because it kind of stands out by itself. You have a little more recognition when you do this. So again, these are going to be tiered. Perimeter means you're on the outside, obviously, so people walking down to get from one row to the next have to pass by you every time. You can put a premium on those. And then you have what you call islands, basically standalones. And those typically are valued higher as well because there's nobody else around you. And so your space, your perimeter, if you will, is the entire area. Where again, if I have a standard booth, that perimeter I have to first grasp people walking by is just what's in front of me. On an island, obviously, you have four sides, and that gives you much more exposure. So, the who and what of trade shows. So when you have trade shows, especially at a convention center, we're talking about these massive shows. You're gonna have, basically, you're gonna have a exhibit services manager, an exhibit services director, and you're gonna have decorators or directors of decor, if you will. And imagine when you set up a trade show, the different things that people are trying to show off. You know, the things you could need are infinite. Internet, obviously wireless, telephone lines, electricity. Do I need water? Do I need heat? Do I need? I mean, it just keeps going on. Do I need furniture? If I need furniture, do I need carpeting? These people will take care of who you talk to do that if you're not bringing it in all by yourself. So again, that position, you're talking about a major organizer, somebody who obviously can multitask, and they are going to be, their operations book will be intense because obviously they're going to have contacts that are either exclusive to the convention center or just ones that the convention center works with that they can put you, the exhibitor, in touch with. So, and again, 5,000 exhibitors, that's a lot of people to get lined up, if you will. Then you have the deliveries, and you have the pickups, and the drop-offs, and the installations. All that coordination is going to fall under this parameter, this department, if you will. And they're going to have people underneath them as well. But again, quite extensive, very detailed. Then you're going to have exhibitors, obviously, the people who are showing up to actually, do the work, have the booth, set it up. And as we've already talked about, these booths can be as elaborate as a mock room setup, which I've actually seen Crowne Plaza do before, to just your typical table and a couple chairs. You might need computers because you're signing up people for your rewards program right then and there on the spot. You might want to be able to check availability because people are coming to you with RFPs right there. And you're going to see if you can close business right there on the floor. So again, your exhibitors can be everybody from sales managers like myself to directors of sales. It could be client services people. It just depends upon what your purpose is at that particular trade show. So, some other things we're going to talk about when we talk about the selling or the production of a trade show. Some things that are going to come into play, and that are going to be scale drawings and layouts as far as of what the space looks like. Now, the scale drawings are going to come into play and talk about the actual layout of the space. Are there pillars in certain areas? Do we only have electricity outlets in certain areas? If you're going to want running water, do you have to be in this area? And basically it's going to be a scaled drawing of the layout of the space and what areas certain types of booths may have to be in. Then you're going to go into more of a layout where you're actually going to show where booth locations are. So now we know where certain things have to be. Now I've got all the people who are going to come, and I'll have a list of 50 to 5,000. I'll say, okay, this one's here, this one's here, this one's here, and I'll basically start putting them into the spots they have to be at. Hey, these guys paid for an island, they have to be here. These guys paid for a premium location, they're going to be on the perimeter. And I'll lay that all out. Obviously, I'll number them or I'll name them, and then that is going to be kind of how everybody knows where the exhibitors go, where I, as someone who's attending, want to go see the exhibitors, I'll get that map. So again, that one, that'll be one of the last pieces that finally get completed, and probably one of the most important ones as well. So also we're going to talk a little bit about when and the where. So, actually, I'm sorry, we already kind of talked about the when, the where, which is obviously where you're going to be set up, but the when. We talked about this a couple chapters ago. Setup and teardown of a trade show is an intense experience, especially the grander the trade show. Again, we talked about bringing in fuselages of airplanes, mock room setups. I saw Hard Rock bring in what basically looked like a restaurant. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. That takes a ton of coordination. Those guys have to know what time they can come in. Who can they use staff-wise? Is this a union shop? Do they have to use union labor in the convention center to unload and load and set up? Can they bring their own people in to actually set it up because it's a specific type of setup? When can they be on the floor? When do they have to be off the floor? How can it be brought in? Is it pallets? Is it a pallet jack? Are you able to use carts? I mean, all of the how and where and why and when go into this trade show, And again, so essential to for the actual individual who's running the show to make sure that all that information is sent out, it's clear as crystal, and everybody knows what their marching orders are. Now, the last thing this chapter talks about is the billing. Obviously, the billing is going to be very different from, say, a convention. I'm sorry, from a conference center to, say, the hotel. And here's why: the conference center is strictly going to handle the conference, so it's going to handle, it'll handle AV, electrical, all that kind of stuff. But it has nothing to do with the overnight rooms. Nothing to do typically with the food and beverage spend. Whereas a hotel, if the trade show is in my Grand Hall ballroom for 100 different booths, well, I'm also getting overnight rooms part of this. Any social functions are probably happening through me. Breaks of any kind, food that they want on the floor, any kind of receptions. So now that billing can become very flexible, if you will. Where a convention center is going to bill you for every single thing you use because that's it. That's what they're getting paid for. A hotel knows that, hey, we're going to make money off heads and beds. We're going to make money off the food and beverage functions. That being the case, you know what? Instead of charging the full price for every booth, we're going to charge you half price. We're not going to charge you for the linens, and the power drops are going to be free. We can be a little flexible to make it more attractive to bring that trade show into my hotel, because obviously we're looking at a much bigger picture in a larger revenue pot, if you will. So there's chapter 17 real quickly. Let me get a quick drink here as always before we go to chapter 18. All right, chapter 18, the last chapter of the semester. Billing of events and post-cons. Obviously, this is an important aspect. The hotel has to have its money. As a sales manager, you may not have much to do with this. As a client service manager, you'll have a lot to do with this. Obviously, if you go into the accounting world of the hospitality industry, this will be your bread and butter. So, we talk about billing. What does the bill include? Well, it includes everything. Whatever they use, whatever services they asked us for, they're going to have to pay for. So your billing is going to include AV, food and beverage, overnight rooms. It could include Wi-Fi if it's not complimentary. It might include special setups in the room. Did you have bartenders at bartenders at your reception? That's an additional cost. Did you go with a premium bar package and there was something additional that had to be brought in because of it? Again, keep thinking about the different things that go into any kind of event, meeting, what have you, they can be billed for. Now, where that shows up on the bill depends upon the group. And you have a number of different options. And the two big ones are master bill and individual pays all. Now, the master bill is anything that the organization or entity putting on that meeting is paying for. And I'll use the corporate market because that's what I'm most familiar with. So, Rolls-Royce comes into my hotel and they're going to have a meeting. On their master bill, in other words, what Rolls-Royce, the corporation, is going to pay for, in this particular example, is going to be the room rental, all food and beverage charges, the AV, and their staff rooms. Nothing else. And on the staff room, it's going to be room, tax, and parking. No incidentals. Okay? And the only person that can say that something additional can go on the master account is usually one person. That's either the planner or the person who's in charge of that meeting, usually a VP or a president possibly. Now, what they haven't covered are the attendees' cost. So for the attendees, it's going to be individual pays all, meaning that I come into the meeting, I'm going to put down my credit card, and I'm being charged for my overnight room, the tax, parking, and any incidentals I put on my room. That's all covered by me. Now, there are meetings where the company says, you know what, we're covering it all. We're bringing those people out there. We're covering their tax, their room, typically not their incidentals, and any kind of parking expenses they would have. And that could all be on the master bill. So, the billing, the way it's going to be set up so the client understands exactly what they're paying for, will be listed in the BEO and the resume. It'll be very clear as to what the expectations are for this particular group so that they know what they're on the hook for, and again, what those costs are. In our world, our Crown Meetings Director, as we talked about before, our Client Services Manager, can actually have a daily meetings debrief every day with the client and say, here's what today's events are, and here's what the costs are. And we like to do that because obviously we don't want them shocked. They should have agreed to all this anyways, but planners get forgetful and sometimes things get busy and things slip their mind. This is one last chance for us to remind them, hey, this is what you signed off on, this is what you agreed to, here are the charges, don't you surprised at the end of the night. So that kind of takes care of what can be on the master account. Now, there's another section that the book talks about when it comes to different things you can see on the masters, and that's gratuities and service charges. Service charges are mandatory. That is kind of like tax. It's already included. A lot of times with food and beverage, you hear someone say that the price is $25 a person plus plus. That plus plus means $25 plus tax plus service charge. And that's included. That can't be waived. That's what goes to pay our staff for working the event. Now, what can be decided upon, it doesn't have to be put on a master, it doesn't have to be paid at all, is gratuities. If the client felt that the hotel went above and beyond, they thought these bellmen, went way beyond, or this service, one of our servers was, again, exemplary, and they want to make sure they get something a little extra, then they can also put that on the master account, and then it's up to us to obviously get it to that individual. So, and when we talk about master accounts, we talk about building a company, obviously there's a couple of ways of doing this. When we do a master bill, we then would direct bill the client. And basically that means we're going to send an invoice to the client saying you owe a total of $35,253. And in that statement, it's going to have a folio, which is going to list all their charges. So they can go through and go, yep, this is what we wanted, this is what we agreed to. And then they'll cut us a check, or, it's a company-to-company payment, if you will. It can be put on a credit card, in which case at the end of the event, we'll review it with the client. Everybody's in agreement. The credit card is charged. They can use check as well. Most companies are getting away from making a prepayment because there always is that leftover. But so I actually have a client that does that. Speedway actually does that. They pay a lump sum up front. Whatever that check doesn't cover then goes on a credit card for the master account. So different variations of how you can do it. The last part of Chapter 18 talks about post-conference, or basically a meeting after the meeting, if you will. A chance for us to review how everything went. And the book has two examples, and I would agree with both of these. You can have a post-con meeting with your staff and the client, and then you can have a post-con meeting with just your staff. And this is great for multiple reasons. So let's look at the first one, post-con with the client and my staff. This is our chance to hear feedback on how we did. Were we exemplary in certain areas? Did we rise to the occasion of the different things you asked us? Where did we drop the ball? Where could we improve? Where was there miscommunication? Where did we do, where were we at in a place where we were we got ahead of it? In other words, we saw the problem coming before the client even knew there was a problem. We want to know those kind of things. Are we being, insightful, and do we have the forethought to cut off problems before they happen? So our chance to get feedback from the client, hear what they have to say, our chance to give them feedback. Hey, you had this organized this way. We were able to pull it off, but it wasn't the best way to use this room, or to use our staff, or to use our services. And we can give them feedback as well to say, we made it happen, but to be honest, it had us go above and beyond what our typical service provider, what we typically would provide service-wise for these different meetings. So again, chance for give and take, everybody to kind of walk away and learn from something. Obviously a chance to hopefully secure business again for the future, especially if we did a good job. Hey, what's this look like about bringing this back? Is it a possibility? Do you think this would still fit with us? Do we meet your expectations? And if that's the case, yes, and yes, then hey, can we have the piece of business back? Then you can have a post-con with just your staff. And this is a great way for everybody to kind of examine how the meeting went. Where did we drop the ball internally on communications? Were any of our departments caught off guard? Did we have enough knowledge going into this? What were the surprises? What are the nuances of this group that we have to keep in mind next time? Man, we thought we had enough coffee, but these guys drink it by the gallon. We got to make sure we have more next time. Or we put out soda pop, but none of them are soda drinkers. Scrap that. They're all men. We can't sit them 3x6. They're too crowded. We need to sit them 2x6, and we're going to need a bigger ballroom if we get this back. Hey, they all need the power drops, and we got caught off guard because nobody knew that. Hey, the AV guys, they think they need this, but the size of the room and the size of the group, we ought to tell them that they need a bigger screen. Our chance to assess the meeting, figure out what we did well, what we did bad, or what we could improve upon, how is our communication, and again, how can we help the client better themselves with different suggestions. So, again, both of those are so very, very important after a meeting to make sure that all of us are on the same page. We know where we did well, where we can do better, and again, hopefully we can secure that piece of business for the long term, and again, talk about those long-term relationships that we've talked about all semester. So that is Chapter 18, guys. So again, I say thank you so much for all of you who have watched these lectures. I appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully you've gotten out of this class what you were hoping to. Again, any questions, you guys know you have my cell phone, you have my email. Please consider me a resource well after this class. If you guys have questions about the industry, if you need contacts while you're out there looking for jobs, please don't hesitate to drop me a line. Again, very, very honored and happy to have gotten to teach this class. And again, hopefully you guys got something out of it. Thanks a lot, guys. Good luck on that last test.